Hey, Queen's Voice, how are you? Peter Kafalis here today at the Jax Inn Diner, one of our favorite haunts here on Northern Boulevard in Jackson Heights. You've seen the gentleman sitting across from me a few times. We bumped into him in the Bronx and a bunch of times as recently as yesterday here in Queens. So we did a few pieces with him, but we were finally able to get him to sit down with us and do more of a formal interview here, or diner interview format, if you will. So Marty Dolan, thank you for sitting down with us. Like I said, we did bump into him literally yesterday at a protest for the homeless shelter that had the Venezuelan migrants shoot the two cops at the 115. So thanks for sitting with us, Marty. Please tell us what has changed since we last met. I've seen you around in the community here in Queens a lot, so you're definitely on the ground, to say the least. You're running for the 14th District, which, to remind our viewers, encompasses sections of the Bronx and Queens. And you are running on the Democratic ticket against the socialist AOC. So please, Marty, tell the viewers what's been going on since we last chatted.
We last chatted yesterday.
On camera.
And then we chatted the day before that. So really what's going on is I think we've passed the point where people have started to see what I call the reality of the squad, the reality of the radical policies. I think when I declared, people were a little surprised that somebody would run against a representative who has a lot of money and a lot of Instagram followers. But I saw it differently. I saw a representative who was not spending time in her community and who was pursuing policies that are maybe they're popular with 10% of the people or even 20%. But we're in a system of government where you've got to get to 50%, and you got to get to 15% over a long time. And so I saw a great opportunity to improve the representation at the federal level. And what I think we're now is that a lot of people are coming on board with that. They're saying, you know what, this is right. This is the right way to look at it. It's not a game of fame and cameras. It's a game of getting things done for the community, and I think a lot of people are coming on board. Yesterday was a good example. So we had the protest at the former Marriott courtyard, which is now a shelter, and I was welcomed by the assemblymen, the assembly candidates, the local community association.
I was there. That's 100% true.
Community association leaders, where. The representative from Congress was not there, was not at the rally we had 3 days ago to support the police who were shot.
Sure.
And I think that's the core of the issue, which is if your community's has now opened their eyes and sees that you're not supporting them.
Well, you're not there.
You're not there. Then they're not going to support you, and now they're starting to support an alternative.
So you feel that besides her bad policies, her lack of having a presence is obviously attracting people to listen to you and be warm, because you did get a very warm reception. And truth be told, we did bump into you probably 3 or 4 times in the last 2 weeks at least, maybe a little less than that. So, which is, probably 6 times more than we've ever seen her here, because we've never seen her here. And a lot of the constituents here do complain that her office is empty. Nobody picks up the phone. They don't get back to you, which, not to pick on her, we hear that about a lot of elected people, but point being made is you are running against her on the Democratic ticket. There is a woman, Tina Forte, running against her on the Republican line. So leading up to the primary, are you battling her for the sole person on the Democratic ticket? Is that how it's going to work?
Yeah, it's one-on-one.
So that person would face Tina Forte.
Right. The voters have a simple choice, which is, do we want more radicalism, or do we want to go back to the center? And what I'm saying is, I think enough is enough. I think we've seen 6 years of this. I don't think anybody would say New York is better off. I think everybody would say New York is much worse off. And I put it in a different way, which is, around the world, business leaders are making decisions every day about where they're going to put investments. It's hard now, the way New York looks. New York looks like it's in chaos. And if you're you're leading a business in Japan, or you're leading a business in India, or wherever, and you say, well, we're going to put money into Queens. Well,
it's a little risky these days.
It's a little risky because AOC has really given Queens a black eye around the world. Literally, it's around the world. It's like Queens equals chaos equals AOC, and if you're a business trying to come here, maybe she's going to come outside your building and have a protest because you're hiring people, which is nuts. And then the other people who are making decisions are the families. So State Controller came out with a report saying that 500,000 families have left New York in the last 3 years. And these are families earning $100,000 to $150,000 a year because they just can't make it work.
It's too expensive.
It's too expensive. You have a 14% income tax rate. You have the inflation. You have the high
property taxes.
High property taxes. And you have a representative who's determined to make it worse, not better, who wants more taxes, who wants...
Oh, she's open about it.
She's open about more taxes. And so you have these decision makers, the business leaders are not going to invest in Queens, and the families are saying, I've had enough.
They're going to other southern states, in the Carolinas, and Florida, and Texas, and many other states.
You have what we call a new technology. So every time there's a new technology, things change. And working from home technology is a huge thing that New York needs to adjust to. What we're saying for our policy is we need to cut taxes dramatically. We need to cut taxes like 25 to 30% so that you can send a signal to the world that, look, New York is open for business, and to the families, you can make it here, right? You don't have to leave. And central to that is you need to restore law and order in New York.
Now, speaking of businesses and speaking of taxes, so I have like a three-pronged question for you. So regarding the taxes, what do you think about the governor putting this tax on hold? A lot of people said she's very nervous about the election and she's trying to, hold her cards close to her chest, so to speak. And secondly, regarding the businesses, Queens has had a tremendous amount of big pharmacies close their doors. Many more are, whether it's in this community, which I know that many have, in my community. CVS, Rite Aid, Duane Reade, they just seem to be closing their doors. The one by me, which isn't in your district, but they suffered almost a $600,000 shoplifting in one year.
It's not funny, but
so it's funny to laugh at because it's just insane.
It's not funny to laugh at.
But when they take those jobs and that store is going to probably stay empty, it's 12,000 square foot, I think. And now we're having a lot less options for people who need things 24 hours. So regarding the tax, which was the congestion pricing, and the businesses that just won't invest more or who are just downsizing and going to other states, what would be your remedy besides the lower taxes to bring them back and keep them?
You have to have law and order. So we committed to law and order about 1,000 years ago. And we've had judges, we've had lawyers, we've had assemblies, we've had parliaments. And if you go around the world, in other countries, the statues that they have are of Napoleon, or there's a statue of somebody, they're statues of warriors. But in the United States, we have statues of lawyers. We have Abraham Lincoln, we have Thomas Jefferson, we have James Madison. So we're a country that reveres the law, and the law comes out of this legislative process where people are well trained. You have lawyers, you have accountants, everything is checked and tripled. It takes 5 or 6 years to make a law, and then you have a congressional representative who says we're not going to pay attention to the law. We're going to invite people to come into this country illegally
and defund the police,
and we're going to take away from the police and have zero bail reform. So it's crazy. All right, that's the problem. Is it's the whole thing is backwards because everything is built on law and order in the United States, and then you have a local situation. So AOC doesn't understand taxes. I understand taxes. She doesn't understand business. I understand business. So let me tell you how a pharmacy works. The way a pharmacy works is, like a lot of businesses, you go to the supermarket, they make their money on the items near the checkout, the extra stuff that you get. The same with a drugstore. They're not making their money on the toilet paper and the other stuff. They're making it on the little items that you get. I need that, and you get it. Sure. Or maybe you don't need it and you get it.
Chocolate.
Exactly. When you take that away from them, their profits disappear, and then they're stuck in a situation where they're like, "What are we going to do? Keep paying rent to have the criminals are running free, and we're going to put the toothpaste in jail. You have to literally get a key.
Soap.
Yeah, the soap. I'd like to buy soap, please." And so when your neighborhood drugstore closes down, blame AOC. When you're walking down the street at night and you just don't feel right, you got to looking around all over the place, just blame AOC. When I have a friend who had this problem. Her daughter was working at night, She didn't trust, even to have an Uber bring her home. So she had to go at 1 a.m. and pick up her daughter. Well, you can blame AOC.
Sure.
And all I'm saying is, New York has turned it around before. You had Ed Koch, he turned things around. You had Giuliani, he turned things around before. Later on, maybe not so much, but we all remember it turned like that. And
Disney came to Times Square. I mean, yeah.
Times
Those
Square.
hookers and peep shows and drugs, and who would have thought? Honestly, I never believed it.
You wouldn't believe that
so.
Times Square could have been turned around. You wouldn't have believed that people would, line up to live in Williamsburg or to live
Lower East Side.
Lower East Side, and now it's so great to live here.
Yeah.
Well, that's because the leaders made it better, and so we can do it. But what happened to each of Bloomberg, Giuliani, and Koch is they were elected. You have to be elected in order to make the change, and that's our opportunity on June 25th.
No, obviously, going to get elected, you'll be having to deal with people that compromise and people who are going to fight against you. What if you were elected tomorrow and you had to sit there and go? Do you see a lot of pushback to the bail reform? A lot of pushback to undefunding the police? Like, what do you see? Do you see a lot of common ground with your colleagues, or do you see pushing? How do you look at what they would receive you as trying to change bail reform and the police and all that?
So I think it comes down to the leadership that you can show. So when you're elected to Congress, remember, you're elected by the people. There'll be 25 or 30,000 people who vote for you. Now, if the city council members see that, if the assembly changes, if the state senate changes, for example, when I win this election, and I say when I win this election, what do you think Mayor Eric Adams is going to see? He's going to see, wait a second, this socialist agenda, people don't like it.
They voted for change.
They voted for change. And he has a year to go until his election. Well, I think he's going to step up and feel like more comfortable saying, listen, by the way, he's a cop. Like he knows what to do. He's just the radicals.
City council is
the radicals who represent about 6% of the population.
Control the agenda.
Have hijacked the agenda. So I think immediately when we win this election on June 25th, it'll change like that. So every single person running for office is going to say, I have to really be careful about putting out these crazy ideas and have to think about what can I really do to make the city better. So I'm not going to do that on my own.
Sure.
The voters are going to do it, and the other candidates are going to do it. But specifically what I think we need to do at the federal level, is we need to reestablish the right relationship between the federal government, the states, and the cities. So right now, I'm going to say it this way. Many of the northern cities and the California cities have financial cancer. Okay, they have financial cancer. They've had it for a long time. I studied this in college. Everybody kind of understands it, which is they're paying this now and they're paying that later to the people who work for the city. Well, later it's now. So basically what's happening is the taxpayers today are paying for people who worked in the city in the 1970s, the 1980s, the 1990s, and that problem just keeps growing and growing.
It gets bigger because the pensions are getting higher.
It's like financial cancer. So the progressives are doing, and the radicals are doing, they're saying to the cancer patient, here, have a drink, and you'll feel better. Well, it's true, you feel better for a little while, but it just makes it worse. So the cities in the states can't solve this problem on their own. They need help from the federal government to just restack everything and say, look, the federal government should really take over the pensions. And the cities have to refocus on managing the city today, not managing the city of people who work. So if you think about it, New York City's in 2 or 3 different businesses. They're in the running the city business, but they're in the retirement business. Basically, a third of what they do, 30% of what they do, is they manage a retirement system. Well, we have 50 states managing retirement systems when we have the federal government who already has a retirement system. Sure. So my proposal is, if you take over responsibility for that at the federal level, everyone's still going to get everything that they're due, and you tell the city, let's go back to basics. You're going to run the police force. You're going to run the sanitation. You're going to run the fire department. You're going to build infrastructure on time and be ready and then you're going to run the city. Your job is to run the city. Your job is not to provide a retirement system with 50 other states around the country. So that's the first thing I would focus on in Congress, is getting the cities focused on delivering the basic services. And I'd have a lot of support, I think, from the congressmen in California, Illinois, Ohio, New Jersey. You can get to 200 congressmen pretty quickly, but with the radical congressmen, you get to 20 or 30 congressmen, and then you get the news cameras, and nothing ever happens.
So now we touched on the business part. What's your personal feelings on why the governor? A lot of people are saying it's because of the election, but are you for congestion pricing? Are you against it overall? And what are your constituents are telling you right now?
Let me break that into two different questions. Okay. One is, Kathy Hochul changed her mind because people were unhappy. Well, wait a second. That's a good thing. People are dying for politicians to be honest and to say, you know what, we had this idea, and people don't like the reality of the idea. So we're going to hold off until we figure out a way to get everybody comfortable with it. So I give her a lot of credit for that. I give her a lot of credit for reacting to the public. Well, you're supposed to react to the public. That's your job. You're not going to bat 1,000 as a politician. I give her a lot of credit. I think I give President Biden a lot of credit for saying, we're going to freeze the border. We're going to reduce the number of asylum seekers. It should be 0, but anyway, he's trying to freeze it.
But to push back on that, he did say after 5 or 6 days of X amount of people, being that a lot of people are saying at least Border Patrol 12 million, 15 million a year, shouldn't he have just left it closed when he, or close it with a stroke of a pen?
I think he's on his way there. So,
but is it too little, too late? As the damage?
It is too little, too late. I think it's been a serious mistake by the Democratic Party. And again, I support the Democratic Party. It doesn't.
Well, you're very honest to say that. We appreciate you being candid. You're not reading a script. You're actually speaking from the heart, which, a lot of people on your side won't say that, but it's positive to see you're a very honest guy.
They screwed up on immigration. Okay, they screwed up, and I think it's time that they just say, look, and they're taking the time to fix it. I don't know how they managed to screw up, but they screwed up. So I think Biden is doing the right thing to try to fix it. I think Hochul's doing the right thing to say, listen, people aren't happy. Let's just tap the brakes. Literally, with congestion, we're always tapping the brakes. And then let's try to fix this. And I give Mondaire Jones a lot of credit, because Mondaire came out in favor of George Latimer after having endorsed Jamal Bowman a couple of years ago. And it's the same thing, which is, all right, he thought Jamal Bowman would be whatever. It didn't work out that way. So
he switched his endorsement.
You have to adjust to reality as a politician. You can't just
toe the line, right?
You can't just be fixed and this is what I think and I'm never changing my mind. Well, that's the problem with AOC, which is AOC.
She's dug in.
He's just dug in. I am for these
Socialism
radical ideas.
With that.
And if I'm going to go to the Pride Day in Jackson Heights, I'm going to talk about Israel. And you're like, okay, but people, think about the struggle that the gay community has had, and it's in our community. And
she went in to talk about other
struggles. She's talking about, okay, well, people are going to boo you.
Out of touch.
Which is what happened. So I think adjusting to political realities is something that you have to. That's what being a political leader is.
No, listen.
But anyway, you asked the second question, which is about congestion pricing.
Yes.
Which is what I think about it, and I want to give an honest answer to that. I think congestion pricing, in its concept, it's one of these new technology ideas that we have to look at, because it's supply and demand, right? It's the most American thing. If you got a popular road and everybody's paying nothing to be there, it's just going to get filled up and filled up and filled up. And the place where there should be, that should be exploited is in Queens and in the Bronx. Because if you go to the Bronx, or let's say you come off of, we're in Queens, so I'll make it a Queens example. You get out of the airport at JFK, you've just flown 1,000 miles in 2 hours, like it's a modern technology. And you get on the Van Wyck Expressway, and what do you see? Just red lights. Yeah. And you can't go from JFK to wherever you're going in less than an hour and a half, but you just flew from North Carolina in 2 hours.
Yeah.
So Queens and the Bronx have something in common, which is they're about 1.5 million people, but they have about 20 million people a year going through the district who don't live in the Bronx or Queens. Now, that's a big complaint in the Bronx because they've had Metro North go through there, and there's no stops in the South Bronx. Well, they're trying to fix that.
Sure.
And in Queens and the Bronx, you have all the truck drivers coming through here. So, do I think that a truck driver driving from Boston to Philadelphia, coming through the Bronx or Queens, with $100,000 worth of whatever it is, computers, do I think that they should pay a congestion price? Absolutely. Do I think that a fireman who lives in Queens is going downtown should? No, he shouldn't. He's already part of it. So I think
feel some people and some people no.
what I think you have to get to is that you should come to everybody understands what carbon neutral is. Like you're neutral to the greenhouse gases. So if you're going to have a factory, you should plant some trees and okay. It's the same thing with congestion. I think that if you're going to have a federal road through an area, it should be congestion neutral. And by that, what I mean is, if there's traffic that goes onto the service roads, if there's the potholes, everybody understands about the potholes, and if you have pollution that's coming off the road. So in the Bronx, you have asthma, you have all this stuff. What ought to happen is, these federal highways were built in the 1950s, 1960s for, 20 million cars. Well, now there's 300 million cars. So you have to adjust to that. You have to say, they're having too much of an impact on the Bronx and Queens. They should be congestion neutral. So let's get funds from the federal government or from these drivers, and then let's put that to making the impact on the community a lot less, so that the service road on the Van Wyck is not backed up. And then in the Bronx, for example, you've got the Bruckner Boulevard, you have the Bruckner Expressway, the Bruckner Boulevard, and you have Lafayette, which it's kind of chopped off by the Bronx River and chopped off by the Whitestone, by the Hutchinson River. Well, let's have a local bridge. Let's have a way for the people to get around without having to, go.
A little more infrastructure.
Let's have what a city should do is safety, sanitation, education, and infrastructure. And the infrastructure in the Bronx and Queens is built for people not from the Bronx and Queens. It should be built for the people here, which goes back to your representative is not thinking all the time about what can I do for the people of my community.
What, if you don't mind us asking, what is your background prior,
Sure.
Professionalism, where'd you grow up, a little bit about your family maybe, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so
just curious, we haven't touched on that yet.
I'm one of 9 kids. I had 4 brothers and 4 sisters. My dad was an immigrant from Argentina, and he was a doctor. So we lived in a 2-bedroom house, and the doctor's office was downstairs. So and he was an immigrant. He got no help from anybody. So what he did was he bought an X-ray machine, and we were near a General Motors plant. And let's say a guy in General Motors, he got hurt. They would bring him in to see my dad, and instead of having to, when you go to see the doctor, they say, we're going to go get an X-ray someplace else. Yeah. And you're a working guy. You can't go running around town.
Have time.
So you just deal with it. So he would send them downstairs, and he would do the X-ray himself. And then the weekend we would play with the X-ray machine. We were so that's why my hair is a little ecstatic sometimes. So I grew up in a small community, and when New York City went bankrupt in 1975, my dad asked, he's from Argentina, he goes, how does it happen? Like in Argentina, we go bankrupt. How is this happening? And I made it my field of study in college. I studied the bankruptcy of New York, and
Lindsey Johnson, right?
It was Mayor Lindsay made a few long-term promises that he couldn't keep, and then Mayor Beam sort of hid them, and then they just the tax revenue went down, and all of a sudden you had all this.
Maybe something similar to today.
And by the way, it was an investment banker, a guy named Felix Rowayton, who came in and helped New York and Governor Carey and Mayor Koch, they came in and they fixed up, they fixed the problem. So I was really fascinated by that, and I ended up working on Wall Street. I worked on Wall Street. I started on Wall Street. I was a bartender in college, by the way. So just we can have a little
one thing in similar with AOC.
We could have a mix off if
I'm sure she wasn't in the financial sector, but
I don't want to say I was a better bartender too, but I could pour the beer quickly. Let's put it that way. When I graduated, my first job on Wall Street was $40 a day. $40 a day, and I just kept working my way up and went to business school. I went to Harvard Business School.
Oh, wow.
Got some better training. No bartending there, and then it was like all work all the time. And then I just kept working my way up, and finally I became focused on the risk insurance sector. So the risk insurance sector is this very complex spider web of money that protects the world. Example, when the planes went into the World Trade Center, terrible, like the worst possible thing.
Sure.
But the money was there to rebuild the Trade Center. And I was one of the people in my sector. We have accountants, lawyers, actuaries,
underwriters.
Not the most exciting people, but there were 5,000 to 10,000 of us who we just dropped everything and we're like, how do we create more capital so that the other office buildings could be protected and the airlines could be protected. And so I ended up being a senior banker at JP Morgan and a senior banker at Morgan Stanley and other firms in this field. And I think it's been a great experience for Congress because you're always dealing.
They waste a lot of our money.
When I get in there,
well, listen, you have a financial background, so I'll feel a lot better. At least the math will add up.
Everybody, think of it this way: everybody knows the biggest waste of money is your credit card. You go over on your credit card, and you're paying the interest. Well, that's the problem with the government now. Is we borrowed so much money, and now the interest rates are going up, which is causing inflation, and that's going to cause the tax revenues to go down. So what I'm saying is it's a complex system, just like the one I worked in. And when I worked, every day there were lawyers checking my work, there were accountants checking my work, you're always trying to prove
checks and balances
yourself to 200 very, very smart people, which is what Congress is like. So my work has been checked for the last 40 years by the best lawyers, the best accountants, whatever. And that's what I want to bring to the House of Representatives, which is I don't think there's anybody in the House of Representatives who has the financial background.
Fiscal responsibility?
Well, it speaks for itself. What I'm saying is I don't think there's anybody who has the same background I have. I've worked internationally for 15 years. There's a lot we can learn from other countries.
Sure.
I'll give you an example. In England, there are about 50 different agencies that can arrest you. There's the airport police, there's the London police, that you're driving too fast at 50. In the United States, there's 18,000. Okay, 18,000, you have the sheriff, you have the marshal, you have,
state police.
In Los Angeles, you have the Los Angeles Police Department and the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. Well, guess what? They don't share information. And they don't share information, so then you have a thing where the criminals get going in New York, and once the cops get onto them, they go to New Jersey. And then once cops they go around.
Or even just Long Island.
Or just Long Island, because and then the police are, they're going through the books. Yeah. There has to be a better way to do it. And so you don't have to consolidate the police forces, but you have to consolidate the information and make sure the technology.
The intelligence.
Look, you go on your phone, you can book a flight, or you can book a restaurant, whatever you're doing. You can shop. Someone's going to deliver your soap to your house in about a minute.
Sure.
And to find the perpetrator, they're looking through books. It makes no sense. So what I would bring to the Congress is much more financial training and much more international perspective. Obviously, I'm not as connected to the local community, but there's a lot of people who are, and so it makes a good team. And yesterday at the protest, I think you saw that. So, for example, we had Hiram Montserrat. awesome guy. You know, the community love him.
Yeah.
He's trying to get back in the game. His heart's in the right place. And we're protesting outside the former Marriott courtyard, which is now a shelter. Well, hold on for a second. What do you think what do you think their role in this should be? If you're a hotel and you come to the community, you say, oh, please, we want to put a hotel in your community. And the community is like, all right, well, thank you, come into our community. And then they abandon their hotel and they turn it into a shelter. And then, well, it was a franchise. No, like, you can't do that.
But it's happened everywhere. And same thing in my neighborhood. We have one hotel, and the Wyndham in this case, and they promised us it's going to be a hotel, which is a 7-year-old building, very modern, and it'll be a place for tourism, for visitors, family, friends.
Sounds great.
Sounds great until the
tourists from Venezuela or China.
Well, until they turned it into a shelter. But
I'm saying that you have to have a head for business and understand that they can't be allowed to do that.
But when
so
Mayor
easily.
Adams says, "Hey, what do you charge a night? $200. Hey, I'll pay $600 for 20." I mean, they're going to sell us out in a heartbeat. It's
you can't. Well, I'm saying
we have to stop that.
Right, and I'm saying that if you put together the local experience and the business experience, you can say, well, listen, that's basically. That's kind of a violation of zoning. It's a violation.
So we have to make sure if you're coming for a hotel.
If you're coming for a hotel,
it's a hotel.
It's a hotel.
That's it.
And if you do something that's not right, we're going to come after your company. We're not going after the guy who owns this hotel.
But it's a lot of times it's a franchise sometimes.
Yeah,
so
but you have to be able to go to
corporate.
To corporate.
And say that's it.
Say, listen, like, this is what you did to our community. Now you got to reestablish control over what your franchisees can do and cannot do.
So that's a state or a city law we'd have to.
You just need the right mentality, and so that's an angle we're going to look at, which is everybody wants that when they come in, they get what they want, and then they do.
But I agree with you. There should be repercussions for a company who comes into any community and says, "Hey, we're coming here for a hotel," and then you put either illegal aliens, or you put our own homeless or the mentally ill, or even people transitioning from prison with no input.
If they've damaged the reputation of Queens, they've damaged the reputation of East Elmhurst, then their reputation should be damaged. And most companies, when they've done something wrong, it's almost like they didn't realize it, or they were trying to get away with it. And once you remind them, look, this is bad for you, this is bad for your reputation, they get the message, and then they say, you know what, Mayor Adams, we can't rent this out to you because it's going to be bad for our reputation. And that's what's happening, is these companies, these hotel organizations are starting to get bad reputations for what they're doing.
Yeah, listen, unfortunately, I'm sure you're well aware, as we've seen you throughout Queens, it's become the dumping ground for the last administration, the current administration, for, like I said, just homeless hotels or the illegal alien shelters. It seems like you can drive anywhere in Queens almost and find a lot of them are relatively new places that have been converted, and like I like to say, they've sold out the community by saying, hey, it's a hotel. Nope, now it's a shelter. And we've seen countless incidents just where we were yesterday. That's where the illegal alien from Venezuela was nice enough to shoot at 2 uniformed police officers. So my point is, it's a big problem in Queens where, we could probably, just off the top of my head, I could probably write down 30 places in the borough that they're not hotels, they're shelters. And a lot of them are new. So it's something that I think, and I'm sure you saw yesterday, a lot of people were angry.
Well, let's look at it this way. There's the city of yes, we're going to change zoning. Okay, your city of yes, we're going to change zoning, and we're going to mix residential. Okay, some of that's good, great, but if you can do that, why can't you fix the zoning where these hotels can become shelters? A hotel is a hotel. It should be a hotel. Now, if they want to sell it and make it into a local emergency room or something that's good for the community, then you go through the community board and you get the feedback and you do it the right way. But you can't just say, I'm running a hotel and all of a sudden I'm going to have a long-term contract with the city of New York to put who knows. That's not a hotel. You can't even, for example, New York was able to move quickly to change the Airbnb law. So people liked Airbnb. They're like, I have an apartment, I'm going away.
I'll rent it.
Right, that. New York moved like lightning to say, no, you can't do that.
They did.
Because of the hotel lobby. And so where's the pushback from your representative? Like, where's the pushback where you can go in and say, well, Airbnb, people could have noisy people coming in. All right, so we don't want that. Well, the shelter is much worse than an Airbnb, and New York was able to change like that. So I think we have to get the pressure applied to the right points to change this.
Well, listen, you made another honest comment. The hotel industry, we know, is a big donor to both mayors, the last mayor, de Blasio in particular, and they did do that lightning quick, which we're not used to here in New York.
It's amazing how quick people can
very
move
quick.
it.
No, you're
when they want something.
It was done very quickly,
Yeah.
and we know who paid for that, the hotel industry, which is
Right.
another story. But you brought up some honest opinions, which we appreciate. A lot of people just give us the straight, the formal answer, but you spoke, very freely with us, very candid, so we appreciate that. We did try to reach out to AOC about a debate. We know you would like to debate her, as would Tina Forte running on the Republican ticket. No response. We've
I think
reached
the
out.
people of Queens would like it.
People of Queens would like it.
You're entitled to it.
And to be very honest and very fair, we have had several folks who are running for offices, different positions, and not one incumbent, not one, has gotten back to us or said yes to a debate. So it's not just AOC hiding from yourself or from Tina or anybody. It's a lot of the other incumbents. Nobody wants to come out and debate.
Well, hold on. I think that's a crucial failure of leadership. And
Not very democratic.
well, I think you are, when you're a congressional representative, you're representing 776,000 people. Maybe half of those are under the age of 18. So that's why you don't get, they don't all vote. Okay, so it's the same thing with the Amazon decision, which is the thing that kills the killer thing that I don't understand about the Amazon decision is you're 10 years old. The way you go when you're from 10 years old to 18 years old, and not just graduating high school, but you're graduating high school and you're college ready, where you're ready to go to the next step, is you see adults around you, or people who are, my brother was 4.5 years older than me. So I knew what was coming. I knew what it was like to be in the 10th grade when I was in the 6th grade. I had uncles and, so if you're 10 years old and you see your mom going to work, and you see your cousin going to work, and maybe they're driving a truck, or maybe they're running the computer system, or maybe they're doing whatever, you see a way to advance. But if there's no job, if there's no local job, the people might say, oh, those people should go get jobs. Well, they're getting jobs, but they're getting jobs in McDonald's or Subway, and they just can't get started. And the getting started period is the crucial thing. So I think that if you're setting a bad example for the kids, you're setting a bad example for the people who are up and coming in the district by not debating, by turning down jobs for your district and giving New York a black eye all over the world. I think it's a real problem. I have a real problem with that.
And a lot of people here in Queens were very disappointed because it would have been a lot of jobs and revenue and,
Well, what happens then is if you don't debate your opposition and you win, people don't think it's legit. You have the crown, but you didn't earn the crown.
No,
So.
and listen, I would agree with you. I think everybody, no matter what they're running for, local, state, city, federal, should at least be forced to debate one time, just to get it out there for the voters, for the taxpayers to decide who's the best man or woman, So we're going to wrap it up here. We're here at the Jax Inn Diner.
Right.
Here in Queens. We appreciate Marty actually sitting down with us today. We did a formal little interview instead of standing up and walking around the street, because they do bump into him every way. The man is out and about. You got to give him credit. But Marty, we hope to come back soon.
Okay.
And we wish you the best on your race. And please keep us posted. Anything that we want to share, any new news.
June 25th. You don't have to come see me, but go see your voting booth. That's the main thing.
That's a primary day, right?
June 25th is primary day, and do your research and get out and vote.
Well, you heard it from the man himself. He's running for the 14th district against AOC, which encompasses areas in the Bronx and Queens. And he would like to be a congressman if you're in that district. So, like he said, look up who he's running against, look up the incumbent, see who looks like a better choice for your community and your family. Peter Kafalis with the one and only Rolling with Dolan, Marty Dolan here, running for the 14th district. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Please hit the like button or subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you soon, Queen's Voice. Take care.